So it's come to my attention that, throughout the course of this pandemic, a lot of people had to change things up. One thing, I noticed, no, I've noticed it before, I just never did a video on it, is, you know, well, it's Sunday, so what happens on Sunday? A lot of people, they go to church, and some places are still locked down, and even the places that are open, they still, this past year, a lot of these churches had to do online alternative. Now, the problem with that is a lot of these places they don't know the fundamentals of streaming, of broadcasting, putting up a mix for broadcast or recording. So today's going to be about that. It's not about any sort of criticism or whatever because it's not their fault. All they had to do was before that just learn the ins and outs of a mixer and put it up just put it in the house and there you go. But what happens a lot of times is that they just go ahead and they throw up a mix or just copy the mix from their house feed, which causes I don't know if you've ever heard one before. If you do or don't tune into a church, or if you've actually seen like a lecture, um, coming from like a third party thing where they just take the feed from the board and you don't really hear it up when someone's speaking, or you hear the mix and it just doesn't sound that great. Like some things are drowning out others and all that other stuff. So I'm going to show you today what you can do if you ever have something where it's a live event or live something and it's meant to be streamed, broadcasted, or recorded, and you want to make sure that those that are tuning in are having it's pleasant to their ears as well as the people in the house. I mean, that's a horrible thing to judge. You tune in and it sounds horrible, and you think that, my gosh, this place, they don't know how to do stuff, blah, blah, blah. I bet it sounds horrible in the house. Not necessarily the case. So I'm going to show you a couple things. All right. In an ideal world, here's the setup. You have your stage box, and it splits. One goes to a mixer that's for the house, and the other goes to a mixer that's for strictly recording or broadcast. And that's done right, and that can be very expensive. So let's pull up the next slide. Oh, did I? Oh yeah, next slide. Okay, there we go. All right, here we go. Okay, so here's what happens now. You have I went ahead and I took away that recording thing. So that right there is what happens. You have from that main mixer, they not only are sending signal to the house, but they're sending it to the streaming computer or the broadcasting computer recording, or even a multi-track or just a regular stereo tape deck or CD burner or what have you. So how do we get that to sound good? So here's some things you can do. But first you need to know a couple of things. So right here, this is a channel strip. All right, so let me expand this. Oops, wrong one. There we go. Stupid OBS. Okay, so right here at the top of the channel strip, you have what's called your gain knob, and your gain knob represents your signal strength. That means you're going to adjust that to make sure the signal has enough strength. Now, once you determine that level, you don't want to adjust it too much, especially if it's going to everything. If it's going to the stage monitors, the house, and your streaming computer, you start messing that with that knob, it affects everything. Then you have over here the pre-post assign. These are your auxiliary sends. A pre fader auxiliary send is good for a monitor send. A post fader is good for effects and it's good for broadcast. Now, the post fader, meaning whatever you do um, in, whatever you adjust it, like your EQ or your gain or even your house level, um, that's actually going to affect something. Post fader is good for effects. It can be careful for broadcast, but some boards, the board EQ will affect both the post and pre, and some boards it'll only affect the post. So use that with caution. Between consumer boards and pro boards, there is a difference, or prosumer. Your next is going to be your pan knob, or your left, right, even odds knob, and that means if you assign it to the stereo system, that's basically pan it to the left or right. But if you assign it to the subgroups, like say 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, remember, left is odds, right is even. Just remember that. Then you have your on off button or your mute button. Depends on what board you have. The older Soundcrafts say on off. The newer ones just say mute. The Yamahas still say on off for the channel. The next is going to be your output assign, like these buttons right here next to the fader. Your 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes there's a 5, 6, 7, 8. Depends on if it's a 4-group board or an 8-group board. And then of course your stereo or main. Some will say main, some will say mix, some will say stereo. Depends on what you got. So keep that in mind. All right. Next slide here. Okay. All right. So this is a picture of the group section. This is obviously an older model. I think a Soundcraft. You'll notice they have little screws right there, and that's back in the day when you can take out each channel strip and each group section fader, or even the master section, and just go with it. And now this one right here at the top, and most boards won't have that pan option for the subgroup. Um, this one has a button that says mix and mono. You could actually disengage them both and it'll just be a dry send. You could send anywhere. And I'll show you that in a minute. Now and the purpose behind these faders right here. Say you have vocals, your backup vocals. Say you have your rhythm section. You can assign a group. Um, where are you? Oh, okay, subgroup. Okay, good. Okay, so you could assign group 1, 2, 1 through 8 as like, say guitars or rhythm section, horns, vocals, you name it. Um, or if you have like say it's a 48 channel board and you have like a split stage, it's good for that too. So again, they could be either dry sends or you could assign them to the main mix um, for the most part. And then, of course, up here where it says AFL, PFL, pre-fade listen, after fade listen. If you're going to do recording monitoring or streaming monitoring for a single console, you want after fade listen. If you're just doing live and you're just like, man, which guitar is buzzing, or what the problem is, that pre-fade listen, you just pull one headphone up to your ear. You don't want a live mix with headphones. That's stupid. That is stupid. So anyways, so that right there will help you out, and of course your monitor phones level. And if you're mixing for recording or broadcast, that monitor phones level needs to be kind of high. You want to mix at 90 dB, because that way it'll sound more even. And then it's like, why is this guy quiet? Why is this instrument all the way up here? And that's the problem with doing it with the recording directly from the the main front of house console. So that's going to help you out. And so that brings us to to this. This right here is a matrix section, and let me show you what it is. Hopefully you guys can read that. Okay, and this is going to help you out for if your board has a matrix system and you only using one board to do front of house and recording and everything else, use that matrix system. And so this board in particular has 4 matrix outputs. And this knob up here, that I believe that says EXT in, and that means like, okay, you can plug something directly into it. But most of them don't even have that. Most of them have your groups 1 through 4 or 1 through 8, and then you have your um, left and your right. So let's take matrix 1, and you could assign something to a matrix and use that as your recording feed, saying, I want a little bit of vocals, I want some rhythm section, um, and then of course the horns or whatever. And say once the main speaker gets up to speak, the volume in the house, he doesn't need to be pushed as loud as the band. Like, you're not. I mean, the band, you're obviously doing something, but that'll allow you to adjust control, saying, okay, well, we want more of him in the broadcast feed, so you pull up the left and right, and there you go. And then down here is your matrix output level. And why do you need multiple matrices? Um, so you could do recordings, and these days streamings, and also like say you need to send a feed to a 70-volt system, like your lobby or whatever. The matrix is your friend. It is your friend. Trust the matrix. Okay, so what if you just have a 16 channel mixer and you do not have a matrix system? You don't have a splitter snake, so you don't have another console, and all you have is this board right here with a left right out. So let's go right here first of all the way to the right side of the screen at the bottom. Let's see, is that the one? No. Okay, all the way at the bottom, you'll see that I have it listed for unused recordings, or unused auxiliary sends for recordings. Your auxiliary sends, you would say, for your stage monitors, and you would have them at pre-fade. And if you want to do a recording, you could just set it up as a post fader, um, and and basically you could just say, I'm going to send 5 and 6 or whatever. That'll get your stereo going, or you could just do a mono one. Just be careful when you mess with stereo versus mono, and you combine the two and you separate. If you combine the two to make it mono, you might as well do one output. Once you start messing with stuff, then what can happen is you could get phase cancellation. So I only recommend doing one output. Do 2 if you're actually literally doing a stereo mix, but just remember, anything that has the same signal can cancel each other out. It's a different world, and you got to be careful about that. So if you don't have the auxiliary sends for an output, just go ahead with a subgroup out. Subgroup out's not going to give you as much control. With auxiliary sends, you can control each channel by an individual knob. Subgroup, you just have one fader or 2 or whatever, and so it's almost like coming directly off the board, but at least at some point you can actually bring the fader down. Now your last resort would be, say, this mono out or main out that actually has an attenuator. You could say how much or how little you want. Usually I use that. If I have a board like this, usually I'm using that as my sub, so I can say it needs this much or whatever. Do not do not be a fool and use the tape out. If you use the tape out, you don't have any control over the volume, and actually you have to adjust the input volume on your computer. Um, and that can cause a lot of issues. You always want to be able to have control there. Now, this board in particular, you can use the control room out, and that control room knob is the same as your headphone knob. Um, so you can assign that to your headphones. You can monitor it that way. So I should have put down number 4, use the control room out. Um, Not all boards have this. Basically, you might just be stuck with aux sends, and that's it. Or something that says monitor send. Just remember, you want to get the most out of your system, and at the same time, keep in mind you want to monitoring this thing pretty loud. So whether you're using studio monitors or using headphones, remember the mix you do for the broadcast is different than the mix you do for the live. Um, People in the house, make sure that the people in the house are happy first. That comes first. That is number one because they are there. Your next biggest thing is the recording thing, but you should not neglect either one. Remember that. To neglect either one is horrible. Um, just know, just know. I mean, because when someone experiences it live and it sucks live, they're not going to come back, um, or they're going to complain and then maybe come back another time, and they're just not going to come back again if it sucks again. If it sounds great and then it sucks online or whatever, people think that oh, you got to just and you could confuse the people that don't know um, how to do this, but yet they're the people in charge, and so they can get rid of you like that. So just take what I've said today in consideration. If if you're the audio engineer at a church that's doing online services, if you are putting on a conference that is online as well as live, and you don't have the big sponsorship, so you got to work with what you got, um, and all this other stuff. I mean, keep in mind, or if you're an aspiring promoter and you want to grab a few garage bands and you want to have a online event, stream the event that's doing live, keep this stuff in mind, okay? There's a lot of moving parts to it. And as far as digital consoles go, at least with a digital console, it's a little bit different. Concept's the same, but the difference is now you know what your tools are, and with a digital console, you could actually you could actually tell your outputs where to go, how much of something where to go, and there you go. So anyways, that's my advice for today. Uh, like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow me on all platforms, and I will see you guys on the next one. And good luck, and don't make it suck.